like to introduce you to one of the most prestigious, innovative, and enthusiasts of her kind. She is a leader in her industry of business, a compliance consultant, a clinician with over 25 years of experience in the behavioral health industry. She definitely knows how to take your business to the next level, and I am extremely honored to know her and work with her. Miss Venus Allen.
Thank you, Kiwana, for such a great introduction. I am about to share my computer screen. I do want to say thank you for having me back. The last time I was here with you all, we covered government contracting. So thanks for having me back. I really love what this is all about. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm here to talk about financial navigation. This is actually a longer grant writing workshop that I developed years ago for free. It was all day training where we actually did practice groups where we broke out into sessions. And so for the asked by Carlos for this purpose, particularly for COVID-19, we're going to go over some beyond the basics of what is needed to write an award-winning grant or a request for proposal. The goal today is to increase your knowledge about funding your business beyond the basics. Also to increase your understanding about the technical aspects of grant writing and business plans. Finally, we want to improve your skills to become more confident with taking the next step with applying for an RFP or grant opportunity. Some common terms that you will learn with learning the business of grant writing or submitting for contracts, like we covered in the last time I was here, we covered government contracting and the benefits of being certified as a disadvantaged business entity, a small business through SBA, or federally through the Unified Certified Program for being a hub, a historically Black-owned disadvantaged business. But there are some terms that you will come to know as you get experience with writing grants and applying for contracts. So grants, RFP, a business plan, a business proposal, what an award letter is, how to do fact finding, how to apply for a DUNS number or your EIN, your tax ID number. Also, if you're a 501c3, whether you're supposed to apply for what's called a charity licensing number. You can either be exempt from having to pay a fee for a charity license, or depending on how much donations and sponsorships that you bring in, there's a certain fee scale as to how much you should pay, and you want to be in compliance with whether you have an LLC, doing your annual reports, and paying the fees to be in business. You will also learn about grant cycles, reporting cycles, the difference between a private nonprofit and a private nonprofit. If starting a business, you want to understand the difference between going in as a corporation, whether S Corp or C Corp, and what that means and what's the benefit of it, or whether you should be in a limited liability corporation, which is an LLC. An example would be if you are a LLC, you will do your taxes and add your business through what's called a Schedule C on your personal taxes, where a corporation files taxes on its own. So you want to really understand the basic structure when you start up, or learn a little bit more about your entity and whether you should move from a sole proprietor up to an LLC and then up to a corporation, knowing when it's time. Strategic planning and how to write a strategic plan, marketing plans, and understanding your target population and what a target population is and who your target audience is. Also, another key term is funding source, knowing your funding source. So this slide deck defines the difference between government grants, grants from foundations, nonprofits, or for rich corporations, or from task force that are set aside to target a particular area. I won't read this slide for you, but I will make this public and free on our cpcoalition.org website for anyone who wants the slide deck and wants to read deeper. I often get the ask, write me a grant. That's a common phrase that I get, write me a grant. Well, one thing I just want to stand out is that a grant is already written. There's already a purpose, and so there's a RFP, a request for proposals, for you to apply, respond to that RFP. So this second slide deck of definitions is about understanding what solicitations is, what solicitations are, submitting for a bid, and being awarded, and also the difference between, there might not be a grant already out there. So what does that mean? That means you need to write a proposal and propose to an entity that, hey, there's a need for this. This is how we see we can meet the need, and propose it to someone for then when their committees and their board of directors are meeting, they can set aside funds and decide to whether to fund your project or not. Specifically for RFPs, you will, once awarded, you will go through what's called the procurement process, and that's on the back end, getting set up for the funder to release the funds. One important thing is for you to understand whether this grant award is a one-time thing, or whether this grant is going to be something that they're going to continue to fund annually. Usually when it's an ongoing grant, you will have to report back some quality assurance and quality improvement, and report back some data on whether the intent of what you're offering is what the results is. So pay attention to the requirements in any reporting or expectations or documentation that's required of you once awarded. So specifically for COVID-19, I want us to know that there are many corporations that are setting aside funds to help minority businesses and small businesses. There's government entities who are publicly acknowledging minority disparities between small businesses and large corporations, and actually setting aside government funding for us during this time because of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. They're forming task force everywhere on a local level, a state level, and on federal levels to see where should we disperse funds. I would like to charge you with the task of subscribing to popular organizations and foundations who manage distributing these funds, because sometimes it's a short application timeline, and sometimes they do give you a long, enough time to be able to gather the information, put your budget together. So there's so much funding, but learning how to seek that funding, whether it's free or whether it's a loan, you have to spend daily, sometimes weekly, looking at those major companies and seeing what do they have out, or subscribe so when something does publish, that it comes to you. So funding sources could be from the government, from other nonprofit entities, from for-profit entities, from private businesses like a local electrician company, or a local plumbing or HVAC company who just wants to give and is doing very well. And a lot of people give their funding to foundations to manage the application process. So large nonprofits also give funding, like the United Way, Foundations for the Carolina, which I would input their link in the chat box for everyone to have. But you want to know who's who. You want to know who's who. One thing you could do is start preparing a template. So you may not have a business right now. Hopefully the small business systems sparks interest for you to start putting some of those goals and into action. Start jotting down some ideas, get do some fact finding to test the culture, to see what's happening, what's going on. For example, right now, social determinants of health is a big thing. So social determinants of health are things besides medical and mental health that affects our wellness. Things like housing, things like transportation barriers, things like food disparities, and things like interpersonal violence. And so that's what's going on now. Identifying that there has been an injustice between large corporations and benefits that they get, like getting bank loans as opposed to small businesses. So you want to stay in the know what the current events. So the previous slide was know who's who, but this slide here is putting your ideas, testing the waters, seeing what's available, and knowing what's going on currently. So some tips for writing a strong grant application. Keep in mind your audience. So sitting on the panels to approve, I've had the opportunity to sit on many panels to approve applicants. So a lot of this information is from me being a grant writer and being awarded some large and small grants, but also as being on a panel and sitting on a committee reviewing applications. Here are some things that typically we do. Another one thing I do want to add is you want to follow the instructions. One way for us to eliminate a lot of applications, so say we get 500 applications. One easy way is just to look at, did they follow submitting it to us properly? 9 times out of 10, 50% don't. So sometimes they'll say 3 hard copies of everything. They want you to print out 3 hard copies and put it in a CD-ROM disk. So what we will do is we'll just weed out all the ones who didn't submit it in the format, so then we'll have less applications to look at. So keep your audience in mind, review and use your information, review your information before sending it in, and don't assume that your reviewers are familiar with your organization and the services you provide. Start preparing the application early. Allow plenty of time to gather required information from various sources and create a pre-scripted template, because most RFPs want you to submit a budget, want you to submit an executive summary, want you to submit the staffing plans, and how will you monitor the quality of your program or your business. So have that already written out. If you have that template, you can tweak it depending on who your funding source is. Follow the instructions to a T, but make sure you read the eligibility requirements. So some people get overwhelmed when they subscribe to all. If you do subscribe to an entity, just select the areas that your business is in, so then you won't, when you get the email, start to ignore them. But one way to easily weed through whether you should take the time further is just go straight to the eligibility requirements, because it would make no sense for you to apply for something that you're not even eligible for. Some requirements are to be a 501c3, and some will allow for any entity, nonprofit or for-profit. One point I do want to go back to is avoid the risk of having the reviewers to hunt through your application for information. Make sure it's in an organized manner. So be brief, be concise, and be clear. Make your points understandable. Provide accurate and honest information. Make sure if any required information or data is omitted, explain why you don't have it. Make sure the information provided in each table, chart, or attachment is consistent with the proposal narrative and the information in other tables. Make sure that your budget reflects back to the proposed activities, and all forms should be filled in accurately and completely. Be organized and logical. Make applications, many applications fail to receive a high score because the reviewers cannot follow the thought process of the applicant, or because parts of the application do not fit together. Refrain from submitting extra attachments. This is another tactic we use on the panel to weed out applicants. Some people feel the need to provide more information as if that's going to get us to approve you. Actually, many grant applications are scored. So we're scoring people using a template. So the extra information can actually be a negative, providing unnecessary or extra information. So do not give more information than what is requested. Carefully proofread the application. Misspellings and grammatical errors will impede reviewers in understanding the application. Be sure the page limits are followed. This is a big one, that's why it's in red. Limit the use of abbreviations and acronyms, and define each one at its first time, and then periodically spell out the acronym word again. Make sure you submit your application in final form without markups. Print out and carefully review an electronic application to ensure accuracy and completion. Some grant applications are requested to be submitted electronically. I would advise you to print it out so you can make sure that you can catch any formatting or page limit requirements, even though you're going to submit it electronically. Check to ensure that all attachments are included before sending an application forward. I just made the mistake 3 weeks ago, but luckily I have a relationship with the Foundation of Carolinas, and they emailed me and said, you forgot to submit this, and they allowed me to, but many times the entity may not be. So double check all the attachments. A final tip for standing out is to ensure that all the information is submitted at the same time. Many of us on panels will not consider additional information or materials submitted after. And one awesome way to look good is submit your grant or RFP a week before the deadline, or at least 4 to 5 days before the deadline. It does look good, and it does kind of have us a little bit biased towards those that turn it in 5 minutes before the deadline. So it should not be, as a panelist, we should not, but naturally, sometimes that happens. And so how do you stand out with applying for grants during COVID-19? Again, see what's going on, see the charge, see the action that's needed. Check the news, but also read your government's plans, your governor's plans, what's going on in your region, your county, your city. See what your politicians are doing. Sit on some panels, watch some committees. You'll start to learn about more funding and what's needed when you start to expose yourself to larger networks. Just like I'm learning so much more from the panelists on this network, because I've opened myself up to this opportunity. I'm gaining so much more information and seeing what other needs are. So with COVID-19 and how to stand out, because a lot of people are applying, creativity. Do some fact finding, dig up some information that you have that can back up the reason why you need this assistance, or what benefit your business can do even greater to help the community. Also, top-notch graphics and presentations. Link to companies like Small Business Systems to make sure that your graphics and your marketing, and that you have security software and following security measures, so then that way you can boast and brag about yourself in that way, visually, and also just in your staffing value. Make sure that your marketing material looks like $1 million, even though you don't have $1 million yet. Innovation. Get letters of support. It is amazing to see if churches or schools or other businesses support you in what you're doing on their letterhead and original signed signatures. Letters of support are often required. And then also references and having them directly on the letterhead of another entity kind of backs you up with the funder you're presenting to. Catering to your audience, the panel and committee. One innovative way is think about whoever you're applying to, think who would be on the opposite end to review and decide whether you get this money or not. So cater your writing to who you think is on the other side of the approval application. Superior packaging. The FedEx, did you overnight it, and did you do you have folders that have your logo on it? Did you get it you can go to Staples and they can kind of bind things together if there's no restrictions against that, to make the packaging look good. Current knowledge and current events that are going on that you may can tie to, saying, we are doing this, but we're also going to expand our network by tying to businesses like Small Business Systems, Kawana's business, and Donna Reed's business, and Piranda's business, who does credit repair. We can expand, and so you can show how you can tie your linkages to the community in your package, and use evidence-based practices for innovation. Be dedicated. So stay motivated during this time. Although we're all in a pandemic, look at it, there is a lot of opportunity here. So stay motivated and charge yourself to do a little bit more with research and education and learning the knowledge of the hidden rules of grant writing. So, and then when you're writing, remember to do your template, not to write too much, but don't write too little. So some resources. On the last video, and I would encourage you all to follow Small Business Systems, their social media pages, and the website. Our last podcast that we did, I covered government contracting, and I showed the book, Getting Funded, The Complete Guide to Grant Writing Proposals by Susan Howlett and Renee Burke. And so you can buy the book on Amazon.com, and here's the link. And then Grant Writing USA. So I attend a lot of other grant writing workshops to compare what am I doing to others and what can I learn better and more. And it was costly, but when Grant Writing USA came to Sumter, South Carolina, I actually invested the money and was happy afterwards that I did. But this is an impressive company, and their grant writing classes are amazing. I got so much material. I did post in the chat link the actual PDF, and I'll show it to you briefly right after this. If anyone has any questions, you can reach me at cpcoalition.org or vallen@cpcoalition.org. Michelle Brooks is our president. I want to show you here. This is the websites and resources from Jonna Rogers, and she was the trainer for the Grant USA, but it's 3 pages, and a lot of these were very new to me, and she breaks it down: faith-based, first responders, healthcare, higher ed, K through 12. She breaks down the industries and GuideStar. Some people have a hard time navigating through GuideStar. But I will get with Jonna, ask her if she doesn't mind me to post this publicly on the website. And so in the slide deck, I mentioned knowing who manages the money. United Way is almost in every state. This is United Way of Central Carolina's website. And so this would be someone you would subscribe to, because when a grant comes out, then they'll email you. A grant that's Foundations of the Carolinas has a page. They're a very wealthy foundation, and they have tons of grants. They've given me a personal grant for school as being a minority, and they've given my son a grant for a scholarship for being a minority. And so I love them. They're a really great. They have a grant out now, COVID-19 Response Fund, where United Way is. You see how both logos are here? They're charging Foundations of the Carolinas to take the applications and score. So, but the funds is gonna come from probably both of them, because they both have money. So this grant is out now. And then Carla shared with us, this grant is coming soon, and it's for Small Business Recovery Program. And so remember the tip, go straight to the eligibility. Eligible businesses must be headquartered within the limits of Charlotte, North Carolina, and employ 25 employees or fewer. So it can be a business of 1 to 5. So businesses with 5 or fewer are eligible for grants up to $10,000, and employers with 6 to 25 eligible for grant awards up to $25,000. Score Charlotte and Scores in multiple cities. There's another entity that helps with writing business plans and budgets. But if you have any questions, you can contact me on cpcoalition.org. And I hope you found this information helpful. Thank you.